Morning Grind with Pork Rinds.
Welcome to the show.
It is a Wingin' It Wednesday right here on the Morning Rant. Good morning, North Georgia. What's up? Dave Garner with you till 11 o'clock this morning. I'm here with my co-host, John Davis. Big John joining us right back here on the program as well. I hope you had a good morning so far. We had a good afternoon yesterday as we continued to celebrate our one-year anniversary at the Chambers of Commerces all around the local area. And yesterday afternoon, we were with our sister station, 101.1 The Pulse, as we celebrated our never-ending birthday celebration at the Gilmer County Chamber of Commerce in Ellijay. And John, I don't know if your ears were burning, partner, but I heard Mr. Kyle Ray, the president of the Chamber of Commerce there, and a couple others talk a little bit about you and your name. I honestly, I got to be honest, I don't know exactly what they were saying about you, but I did hear them drop your name on the radio yesterday, and I think it was all good.
Well, I hope it was good.
Yeah, I think it was.
Kyle's a great guy. He's a great representative of Georgia, or of the Chamber of Commerce in Ellijay as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, of course, Georgia Tech, big Tech fan there too, I think, at least. And you've got today your sport for those that can watch on YouTube that are seeing the episode on the video version there. You've got this Bills Legends Community Polo on, man, looking sharp there. So talk a little bit about that and what that's all about.
I'm just trying to represent everybody. When I go up there, usually one time a season, they have a bunch of the alumni come up there and they give us a little bit of swag. So I've been fortunate because I've lost a little bit of weight in the last month or so. So it's kind of fitting pretty good now. And then also I've got as you might know, or your wife, I've got my Tim Hortons.
Oh, there we go.
30-year-old coffee mug from Buffalo. Yes. And if people don't know who Tim Hortons is, it's kind of the equivalent to Krispy Kreme or Dunkin' Donuts.
Right.
Maybe on a little bit bigger scale. But,
yeah.
I have to have my morning coffee with Tim every day.
I had never really, and I know they're all over the place, but I had never really heard of Tim Hortons until my daughter, who actually lives in Canada now. Tim Hortons is pretty big apparently in Canada, and she was telling me all about it. Tim Hortons, we eat there all the time. It's really good. And, we got some different foods and things like that. But yeah, I think I want to say, I can't remember what the equivalent would be here in the South. I mean, I think she said it was something kind of like maybe like a chicken finger type joint or something. I don't know. I don't know what all.
Well, donut. Yeah, it's. I would almost put it as maybe a smaller scale Waffle House.
Okay. There we go.
To me, it's more, from what I remember, it's more of a donut and coffee shop where everybody meets in the morning, almost like a Cheers.
Exactly.
And everybody knows who everybody
knows your name. Yeah, and it's more of a breakfast type locale there. So yeah, I love it. It's hard to beat the Waffle House here in the South. I know, especially if you're from Atlanta, man. But hey, a lot of things going on to cover this next hour. We're going to jump in. Obviously, opening day for Major League Baseball starts today. The Yankees and Giants with the kickoff game, if you will, of the Major League Baseball season tomorrow. Several other games on tap, and then everybody else starts on Friday, including our Atlanta Braves, and we'll talk about that briefly a little bit later in the program. Also, NFL free agency, some moves being made yesterday, and even with our own Atlanta Falcons. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to dive into some other things going on around the world of sports, and a little bit later on in the show, we will take our trip down memory lane with the refrigerator mover. Big John Davis joining us right here on the program. John, we were talking the other day, and we were talking about the whole flag football initiative, and Team USA and all that stuff. And I kind of wanted to build and kind of bridge that conversation over into some NFL free agency. We'll go ahead and kind of, jump right on into that. What did you think? Travis Kelce, first of all, signing a 3-year extension with the Chiefs. Man, I really thought this guy was going to retire. I was kind of surprised when I saw that, because I figured if nothing else, maybe one more farewell season, maybe a 1-year deal to kind of go out and retire as a Chief, but looks like he's in it for the long haul, man. I really thought he was going to be out.
Yeah, Very surprising. I heard about it this morning. Not to make light of it, but I kind of thought maybe Tay would have had him retire so he could travel around with her in concert.
That's what I was thinking too. Yeah.
I don't know. Again, Dave, it goes back to the ego. It goes back to, and that's not a bad thing. It's just that how much more can you play? And I think we all know the uncertainty of Mahomes, and of course they brought Justin Fields back. Signed him from free agency. Yep. So I don't know. Maybe he saw something that he that intrigued him, and he thought that he would go and try it for another year or two. Very surprising though, because obviously he's probably a first or second ballot. Well, the way the Hall of Fame goes this year, or any time now, which I think is so watered down from years past, is a lot of these young kids are getting right in, and we're kind of skipping some of the older guys. Yeah,
they probably deserve to be in. Yeah,
and that's a big beef with me and a lot of other players, because and I'll take for my own examples. We've got Cornelius Bennett, Darryl Talley, Steve Tasker. Right. Those guys should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
Just for that 4-year period that we went through with the Bills. I know I'm a homer. They're my teammates and stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, it's Cornelius Bennett.
I had an argument, not an argument, but one of my old buddies that played at Tech, Michael Cheever, he also played at Jacksonville. Right. And their big tackle, Tony Baselli, got in after 6 years. Right. And I'm like, come on. Come on, man. He was a great player. Right. But 6 years is, I'm not saying he should be in the Hall of Fame, but not first ballot.
Yeah, recency bias.
Passing over a lot.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a recency bias when it comes to Hall of Fame inductions and elections and those sorts of things right there. So again, it's a lot easier for fans and folks to grasp the younger guy, the guys that are fresh out of the game, so to speak, more so than the guys from the past that maybe were overlooked because you didn't get the kind of attention and media coverage and all those sorts of things that you get now in the league. We're going to talk about that later in the show as well. Speaking of attention and speaking of media and league attention, one thing we are going to touch on in the program today in this hour is all the different streaming services. How far will fans go nowadays to pay for all the different streaming services? I mean, basically, if you wanted to watch every NFL game at some point. I know there's the Sunday NFL ticket. I know there's things like that. But, a lot of these games moving to streaming services, and it's not just the NFL. I mean, it's baseball, it's basketball, you name it. Peacock, Netflix. I mean, all the different subscriptions. I mean, things are starting to get expensive. You used to be able to watch every game for free on major network television, and that's just not the environment anymore. So we are going to touch on that as well a little bit later on in the program. And some spring news. Georgia Tech football. A lot of teams, of course, on the field getting ready, for spring practice. Big John, we're going to talk about that and chop it up a little bit too. March Madness Sweet 16 set for tomorrow night. The silly season already starting for coaches. North Carolina, Byron Davis out at UNC. I know there were a lot of people that, including, Coach Williams, that wanted Byron Davis to get that job, but it just hadn't worked out. So, again, Davis already out at North Carolina after they blew that 19-point lead the other night against Virginia Commonwealth. One of the guys that was rumored to be in the running was Celtics President of Operations Brad Stevens, but he says, nope, remove my name from consideration. I'm not going there. The other big coaching news, speaking of Georgia Tech, Scott Cross being hired from Troy as the next men's basketball coach there. Of course, Troy had the early exit there, but they did make the tournament. Scott Cross is a guy that's been known to have success at the mid-major level. So I want to get your thoughts on that too, John, as far as Tech basketball. I know you really haven't followed it maybe as close perhaps as football, but nonetheless, man, I'm sure you still got an opinion about it.
Well, for everything that I've heard, he's a great hire. Right. And sometimes you like some of these coaches from the mid-majors to come in and kind of light a fire under these kids. And from everything that I've heard, they're excited. He's going to bring a lot of energy to the program. And one of the things that he had said, or that I've been reading, is that he's got 2 or 3 players that he really needs to keep. Yeah. But I probably am thinking that it's going to be a roster overhaul. and because he's going to want his type of players in there, which is great.
Yeah.
And in this day and time, the players have to expect that as well.
Yeah.
Because when a new coach comes in, he's got his own system, and if you don't conform to that, you're not going to be a part of the program.
No, absolutely.
So, And again, today that's just the way business is, being conducted.
Right. Yep. That's the way it is right there. So again, we'll have to we'll talk a little bit more about that, of course, in the coming days and months there. As again, Georgia Tech has already made that decision right there. Scott Cross again, Troy, and I was joking around. I mean, Troy was the one team that I actually did have picked to be that Cinderella team to make it to the Sweet 16. They got blown out in the first game against Nebraska, and I was like, oh, well. And then, of course, Tech turns around and hires them, which, I mean, I'm happy about. I think that Coach Cross is a good coach there, but he just didn't help my bracket this year, so I'm still a little jaded right now, I guess. But nonetheless, no, I think it's a good hire. We'll wait and see how all that turns out. Braves opening day again Friday night. We will be there broadcasting live with our sister station, 101.1 The Pulse. I know that Spencer Strider, with the oblique strain there, is not going to be available, at least for the first couple weeks of the season. The Braves did win the Grapefruit League, which is basically the spring training championship. I don't know if that's anything you can necessarily raise a banner for, but maybe that's the start of some good things this year for our Atlanta Braves to maybe try to finally get some offense going there. Of course, the Dodgers win the Cactus League, which is basically the West Coast spring training league. Of course, the Grapefruit League, the East Coast training grounds there, most everybody in Florida. But hopefully, man, maybe that'll at least establish a little bit of early season momentum, for our Atlanta Braves.
Well, let's just hope it's not the equivalent of winning the par 3 contest at the Masters.
Right? Yeah.
Whoever wins never wins the Masters. So let's go ahead and get that out of the way right now. I think at the end of the day, and you agree, and I will say I'm not as knowledgeable about it, even though I love baseball and I love the sport. To me, it's all about depth and it's all about pitching. Yeah. And if you can get some of these young kids to fill in and give you some meaningful, innings on the mound, I think the Braves have a chance, and I know the league, the Dodgers, the Phillies, those teams are stacked as well. And I'm sure there's other teams out there, but I just think it goes back to, and I was listening the other day about y'all talking about the long ball and everything. I'm just more of a guy that put them on base. Just any way you can get on base.
Get them on, get them over, get them in.
Now, there's nothing like, I've got memories of watching Bob Horner hit 4 home runs. In
a game, stadium. Yeah, absolutely.
And just knocking bombs out. And I have great memories of that. But I'm just always one of those guys that just love to see him get on the base and advance. Yeah. And just piled up the runs that way.
Yeah, and that's the way I am too. I mean, sometimes you got to play the small ball game, but everybody chicks dig the home run, right? I mean, we all know that. So again, and the Braves do rely on a lot of that power. Hopefully that power will be there from guys like Austin Riley, Matt Olson, and some of those guys. Hey, we're up against our first break here on a Winging It Wednesday with John Davis. Again, I'm Dave Garner with you right here on the Morning Rant, Monday through Friday, live at 10 a.m., but a lot of different ways to listen to the program. We'll talk about it coming up here in just a moment. But first, a break. We are the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia on the SportsPig app and online at sportspigradio.com.
Tired of shouting your business's name into the void and getting nothing but crickets? Your brand deserves more than awkward billboard glances and flyers lining bird cages. Right now, listeners are hearing me ramble on instead of your ad. That's a touchdown for missed opportunities and a fumble for your wallet.
Recovered, Atlanta. Game over.
Your ad could be here, making fans laugh, cheer, and most importantly, call you. Go to sportspigradio.com or call 678-454-9552 and get your business off the bench and into the game.
Welcome to the show.
It's the Morning Rant, weekday mornings from 10 to 11 on 98.1, 93.7, and 101.1 on the H2 dial. WPGY, the Sports Pig.
And back here on a Winging It Wednesday, presented by our friends at Green Heating and Cooling. Once again, Dave Garner Big John Davis back with you inside our Carriage Kia studios right here as we take you midweek through the world of sports. And, we were talking, John, about NFL free agency, some other moves that I thought were kind of interesting. The Atlanta Falcons a little more closer to home. Again, Trevor Siemian as a quarterback to add to that quarterback room already, as they, of course, as we know, added Tua Tagovailoa, obviously Michael Penix, and now Trevor Siemian, kind of a veteran, another veteran in the locker room right there. So I thought that was kind of interesting. That came down yesterday. Also, Brian Robinson, running back from the 49ers. So now you're going to have two B. Robinsons in that Falcon backfield coming up this year. He signs a one-year deal with the Falcons as well. And so, again, a couple of moves there for the Falcons. We're talking about Max Crosby and the whole deal with the Ravens. And apparently there was something, as we all know, the Ravens backed away from that trade and everything happened. It all came out that Crosby failed his physical. Apparently the report is there was something degenerate, like a quote-unquote degenerative issue going on there with Max Crosby that kind of forced the Ravens to back out of that deal.
And they can do that. That's the whole thing. That's unfortunate. I know that he was probably excited to be able to go there, at least for a contender. I think the way they did it was pretty crappy, bring him in, and apparently they were negotiating. He was in one room, and they're in the other room negotiating, and then all of a sudden they bring another guy in, and Max is out. And it just goes to show you in this day and time, Dave, with the injuries, knees, concussions, just anything, shoulders and things like that.
Yeah.
Teams are being a little bit more, cautious in bringing these guys in. And yes, he is a great player, but I don't know what they saw, but apparently it was enough to make him back away.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Levante David, by the way, retiring after 14 seasons with Tampa. So, again, a lot of moves being made. Some guys, of course, making that decision. I really thought, like we talked about in the first segment, I really thought that Kelsey would be one of those to announce his retirement, especially, as you said, with Taylor Swift, and you figured they would go live happily ever after and retire and step away, much like, his big brother did, a year or two ago there, and right off into the sunset. But Nobi signs a 3-year extension, so I don't know what's going on. Maybe they're having some relationship drama. I don't know.
They might be. Maybe
it's Tom Brady all over again.
Maybe she's not written a song about him yet.
That's what it is, I think.
We got to get that another, the 15th boyfriend song
right.
that Tay-Tay's
exactly.
written over the years.
Got to add to that.
No, I think he's probably seen something. And, again, at that, point in your career, I think it becomes a little bit more ego-driven.
Right.
And maybe he's wanting to just kind of put a nail in his Hall of Fame career and shore it up and see if they can't make another run at it. Because I think they've also put together some offensive linemen in that group as well, which they have been lacking.
Yes.
And maybe he just saw something that's going to work for him. And, and also, it's when you get at this age, and I haven't really explained it to a lot of people, but when you get to this age, it becomes a little bit easier because you're in your I guess the mode of thinking of, okay, I'm here. It's the sheep mentality.
Right.
It's just like, I've been doing this for 10 years, 12 years. I know what to expect during training camp. I know I can take days off. I know, I'm not going to beat my body up.
Sure.
Andy Reid's not in the position of killing these guys during training camp. So why wouldn't you?
Right.
He's not, he's not playing for Tom Coughlin, who ran military style camps.
Right. Yeah.
And so he's like thinking, you know what? I feel good. I'm healthy. I'm not going to have to do that much during training camp, and hey, let's give it another shot.
Yeah. How hard is it? And I'll ask you this because you have this perspective. I mean, how hard is it to walk away from the game? I mean, especially if you're somebody like a Kelsey or somebody that's enjoyed a long career. I mean, I'm sure it's different for everybody, but I mean, as a competitor, like we talk about Tom Brady sticking around for all those years and everything and playing on a high level. I mean, these guys obviously made all the money they ever need to. They don't have to set foot out there ever again if they don't want to, but yet they still, in a lot of situations, choose to come back, even though their body has been through it. So it's got to be hard, I guess, I'm assuming, for a lot of these guys to step away from it.
Well, let me just say this, and you hit on it good. today it's a lot easier to walk away because of the money.
Yeah.
Okay. Back when I played, I didn't want to walk away because that was my career. That was my job. That was my dream.
Sure.
And I think one of the hardest things that you have to admit as a player getting older is nobody wants you.
Yeah.
And that really kicks you in the gut. And so, it's just one of those to where, when I retired or when I quit I got cut my last year and at the end of the 94 season, I took a couple of months off and I started getting some calls from Green Bay, Washington, Detroit.
Okay.
But they didn't want to pay me anything.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I'll come and I'll be on your roster for what you want to pay me. But as soon as you insert me in the starting lineup, then you up my salary.
Yeah.
And they weren't willing to do that.
Right.
And so, that made it a little bit easier. I felt like at that time I had earned a certain salary to be in the league.
Right.
And I was willing to take a backup role.
Sure.
Because I could help the younger kids and just be a part of the team. Because,
and help develop.
It's like I said, Sunday afternoons there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
But they weren't willing to, once I stepped into that role, like the Washington Redskins, history had it at that time back then that 3 or 4 of their offensive linemen would get hurt during preseason or the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season.
Right.
And I told them, I said, hey, this is great. I said, but as soon as you stick me in there, you got to up my salary, and they just weren't willing to do that.
They weren't willing to do that. Yeah, and you got to wonder, I mean, some of these guys that stick around forever, you also ask the question, will they actually hurt their legacy, by sticking around too long? I think there's some guys that, I can understand the competitive nature of a professional athlete is that they want to play as long as they possibly can because that's just kind of how you're wired. But I think at the same time, too, there are some guys that overstay their welcome maybe and don't get out probably when they need to, and they end up maybe hurting, especially the tail end of their playing career.
Well, and as we've talked a little bit, Dave, we think we're invincible.
Yeah.
And we think that we're the best player out there at the time. And we know in the back of our heads that, there's a little fooling going on and trying to trick and everything. Now, did I need to play my 9th season? Could I have played my 9th season? No, I was too hurt. My knees were shot, my back was shot, my shoulders were gone.
Yeah.
But I told my wife Hester, I said, I've got to try to give it another shot if the money is there.
Right.
And of course, when the money wasn't there, it to me, it just wasn't worth it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And that totally makes sense.
And listen, I'm very proud of my 8-year career. And I do think what you just said is true. I think that if I would have come back and been a bench player, I would have been miserable because I've never sat on the bench in my whole life except for my 2 years in Houston. You kind of think you'll be fine and be a cheerleader and everything, but at the end of the day, no, you want to be on the field.
Right.
And I think that I honestly think injury-wise, I made the right decision because I think that, while I'm proud of my 8-year career, if I would have gone on, I would have always thought in the back of my head, well, I spent the last 2 or 3 years on the bench, and, that's not something to hang my hat on.
Right. Well, and it's like we talked about on Monday. I mean, no kid coming out of high school, like we were talking about the whole NIL recruiting and everything, no kid wants to be told, like you were by Vince Dooley, hey, you might get to play your senior year, of college. And so, and that carries on throughout the levels. I think a lot of high school student athletes that maybe were the best, player on their team in high school struggle with that. And that's why a lot of them don't making it because they go off to college and they realize they're not the best thing on the field anymore. There's a lot of other guys that are just as good as they are. And some guys can handle that better than other guys can. But at the end of the day, I think you kind of have to know when to hang it up.
Well, and also I want to give 2 people credit, and I've mentioned it before, but Warren Sellers I grew up with in LJ, and another one of my best friends, David Tutherow, on the football side that I grew up with. We were all competitors, and we just, we were big fish in a very small pond in LJ, and so we had to it was, if I can explain it right, we were always in the forefront of everything that was going on. So they always had the spotlight on us, everything that we did.
Sure.
And so that enabled us to kind of separate ourselves and saying, you know what, not discounting the other athletes, but we were always of the mindset of, we are the men. We're the man on our team, and we've got to step it up from a leadership ability and playing ability, and kind of teach the younger kids to bring their level of play up as well. And when you come from a small school like LJ, you don't have Blessed Trinity athletes, and you don't have Buford athletes. You don't have those.
The demographics just aren't there quite as much. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So us as the spotlight players, we took it upon ourselves to take kind of control and be leaders, not only on the field, but also try to be in the community, but also in the locker room.
Right. And that's the kind of players that coaches want, for sure. They want to develop leaders. They want guys to step up and take that leadership role and make everyone else around them better. And I think that was one thing that, love him or hate him, and I'm not a Tom Brady fan, but for whatever reason, everybody just seems to play better around him, and so there's different players like that, the Michael Jordans of the world and so forth, that, can rally everyone around them and kind of lift them up. And again, that's,
And that's the way Jim Kelly was. I was fortunate. Jim Kelly, Bruce Smith, Cornelius Bennett, Thurman Thomas, James Lofton, Andre Reed, those guys made you step it up. Because listen, when you stepped out on the field, and I've always lived by this, is that I'm not letting the two guys next to me down. I'm going to do whatever I can do not to let them down, because football is a unique sport to where if one person makes a mistake, it can cost you.
Right.
That doesn't happen in a lot of other sports.
Sure.
And so you don't want to be that one person.
Right. Exactly.
And so that's what we lived by, and I think that's why we had the success that we had. Today that's changed a little bit. Tom Brady's a perfect example. Everybody elevate, and he demanded that.
Right.
Jim Kelly didn't so much demand it as that you could just look in his eyes,
and you could see that fire burning.
We didn't have a team that was very vocal.
Right.
But you could look at them and say, okay, I need to get my crap together.
Dialed in,
let's
dial this in.
We're veering off, and we need to get back in lane. And that takes a unique individual or individuals to be able to do that.
Right, absolutely. Love it right here, man. Love it on this Winging It Wednesday right here. Big John bringing it in segment 2 right here on the program. Hey, again, Green Heating and Cooling, our friends, again, sponsoring the show here today. We appreciate you guys being with us. We're up against our second break. When we come back, we're going to transition into some college football, spring practice, Georgia Tech news, all that and much more straight ahead right here on the program. We are the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia on the SportsPig app and online at sportspigradio.com.
Tired of shouting your business's name into the void and getting nothing but crickets? Your brand deserves more than awkward billboard glances and flyers lining bird cages. Right now, listeners are hearing me ramble on instead of your ad. That's a touchdown for missed opportunities and a fumble for your wallet.
Recovered, Atlanta, game over.
Your ad could be here, making fans laugh, cheer, and most importantly, call you. Go to sportspigradio.com or call 678-454-9552 and get your business off the bench and into the game.
Are you serious?
It's the Morning Rant, live on the Sports Pig app and sportspigradio.com.
And welcome back to the program right here. Again, a Winging It Wednesday with our friends from Green Heating and Cooling. Dave Garner back with John Davis, again, the legend, joining us right here again midweek on the Morning Rant. And we were talking about the show. A lot of different ways, of course, to listen to the program. Again, you can pull us up on sportspigradio.com. The episodes are archived every day. Also on YouTube, again, full video episodes if you want to see our faces. You can go to YouTube and download the program. We've had a lot of downloads of the show over the first few weeks. We're already, it's kind of hard to believe, John, but we're already almost a full month into this thing. I mean, we started back at the very beginning of the month. I think March the 2nd was our first show, and now here we are today on March the 25th, and man, I mean, we're just moving right along here. Want to encourage folks also, check out our social media, man. Interact with us. Again, the Sports Pig on Facebook and Twitter, and the Morning Rant on Instagram, and also, as we mentioned, on YouTube. You can also download the podcast version of the show wherever you listen to podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, you name it. It's all over the place. So, again, just look up the Morning Rant on the Sports Pig, and you can find it just about anywhere online. Of course, also live on the dial from 10 to 11 right here on WPGY, the Sports Pig. All right, John, we were talking about pro.
Let me say,
go for it, man.
Let me say one thing, Dave. Even though I've got the face for radio, get on to YouTube and subscribe to us.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
One of the things that I've really enjoyed, because I do 95% of the time are able to listen when I'm not on the show. Great content, and I just think it's a fun show. And as we continue to add things on, like you'll continue to add things on and direct us and everything. I just think it's a fun hour, and I think people will enjoy it. And I've gotten good feedback. I just got a text from my friend right down the street. They're listening to it at his restaurant.
Oh, there we go, man. I love it. Yeah.
So as many people as we can get to subscribe to it and also download the app, that's wonderful.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind this is the fastest 1 hour in sports talk radio, every day around the country. And so glad to be with you right here on the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia. That's WPGY, the Sports Pig, man. We are the trough of sports, and we also bring a unique perspective, I think, to things, especially John. Again, Big John Davis, having spent so many years in the NFL, a two-time All-American at Georgia Tech, proud Gilmer High Bobcat. He was sporting the Bobcat gear on Monday there. Today he's got the Bill stuff on. But speaking of Tech, John, I want to dive in. One thing we haven't really talked a lot about is really college football. And, this station really is very college football centric. Of course, Chuck Oliver will be with us at the top of the hour. He is the king of college football, and has his Southern Sports Today show with us right here. He'll go from 11 to 1 this afternoon, so we're kind of a lead-up show for Chuck. But I do want to dive into a little bit of spring news. What do we know? And I know with you being plugged into the Georgia Tech program, for those folks in and around Atlanta, man, what do we know about this team? What changes can we expect this year? Obviously, Hayes King, being what, everything that he's meant to this program over the last couple of years, but things are probably going to look a little different this fall.
Yeah, and I think it is. And, as we go back and we talk about the transfer portal for the players, it also seems like there's a transfer portal for the coaches, the assistant coaches, because we lost several. And so Brent's always on top of that. And I'll say this going into talking about Georgia Tech, I put a lot of thought into the spring practice on a couple of bases or reasons, is because one, you're getting to know your new players.
Right.
And two, you're evaluating everybody, not only the players, but the coaches, and you're evaluating the
top to bottom. Yeah, you're right. Yep.
We got the Mendoza kid coming in from Indiana.
Yep.
We've got the Knowles kid, I believe, was the backup quarterback, who say that he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I heard there's a third quarterback in there that's supposed to be pretty good, but I can't get a name out of anybody.
It never hurts to have a full quarterback room. Yeah, a full talented room. So yeah, bring them all.
Spring practice is a time for evaluation, especially for maybe the first 10 or 12 practices, because you got to figure out who your players are.
Yeah.
Mentality, physically,
leadership,
academically, you got to figure out who's going to be around. And then probably about the last 3 or 4 practices, they'll start game planning for Colorado and Tennessee.
Yeah.
Just a few things, maybe the base defenses and maybe the base offenses, and see things like that. But I think this is a very important time for all the schools in the country for the evaluation purposes of this.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go down for the spring game. I'm actually going to try to head down next week and see a practice in the morning down at Georgia Tech and kind of get an idea of what else is going on with them.
Right.
I know I will say this, and I have heard nothing but great things, and I'll give a shout out to Will Kiker from LJ.
Oh, yeah. Local boy, yeah.
Yeah, who is a walk-on at Georgia Tech. I have heard great things about him from a couple of my friends in LJ, who might be in line for a scholarship.
Yeah,
and that's big. And he has been very instrumental in the special teams the last couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
And when I was the guest or the Legends captain last year, I got a chance to meet him. A good-looking kid, and of course, the Kiker family is a great family from LJ as well. And I would love nothing better than to see that young man get a scholarship and kind of get that monkey off my back of getting somebody from LJ to come down there and kind of follow my footsteps a little bit.
Right in the middle, as you mentioned, of all this Georgia Bulldog country and everybody else. I got a lot of Tennessee fans as well. So, yeah, it's good to see some of these, some of our area kids, make an impact at Tech on the flats. And, and the thing about it, I mean, Kiker's earned playing time. I mean, that's the thing. He, as a walk-on, he went down there. A lot of these kids, they've got it set in their mind, look, I want to play at a high level. I don't want to just, go to a D2 type school, where maybe I can play right away. It's kind of the antithesis of what we were talking about earlier. No kid wants to be told they're not going to play, especially until possibly their senior year. But some of these kids that feel like they're talented enough, they will pass up scholarship offers to be a preferred walk-on at a Power 5 school, for example. And they'll end up earning a scholarship or earning playing time or what have you. And that's exactly what he's done.
Yeah, and Dave, that's a special kid.
Yeah.
And I had heard that he's a kid that could probably have played maybe in the lower level of the ACC or, and I'm not taking anything away from that, but he chose the hard path.
Right, yeah.
He chose not only football-wise, but academically.
Yes.
And so that tells you what type of kid he is, but also it tells you what type of family he came from.
Yes,
and,
absolutely.
He's got a great, I think his uncle Ben L. Kiker is great in the karate field has had a great
champion,
career with that.
Trained a lot of world champs.
Yeah, they come from a great athletic family, and so I'm happy to see what's going to happen for him because when I tried to watch him whenever he's on the field, and let me tell you something, he's 100 miles an hour from start to finish, and that's what you want to see.
I love it. Again, a lot of Georgia Tech talk right here. We're going to keep that conversation going over the next few weeks. Again, we've only got an hour. We could spend a whole hour talking about Georgia Tech football or really one topic, but again, with just the hour that we have, we do like to move things around a little bit. Speaking of, time now to go down memory lane.
It's time to take a stroll down memory lane with the Refrigerator Mover.
All right, John, again, each and every Wednesday, man, we like for you to share a little story with the listening audience out there. This is your chance to walk down memory lane, man. Walk us down memory lane, man. Give us a memory. Where are we going, college? We going pro today? Where are we going, man?
I think we're going to go a little bit pro today. I was trying to figure out how to head into this segment. Georgia Tech, I played, tackle center.
Right.
And I felt like that it was going to hurt my chances senior year going back to center of being drafted high.
Right.
I felt like probably at the time I should have left my junior year because I was coming off of an All-American year.
Right.
One of the best years that I probably had in my career. I did not for loyalty of the team.
Yeah.
I decided to stay for Georgia Tech and for Bill Curry. So you go into the draft thinking, well, I'm putting myself in a good position because I can play just about every position on the offensive line. We already know I can't play left tackle from my stories past with Bruce Smith, but from left guard over,
you told on yourself that day,
I can handle myself pretty good. I was being told, I was going to get drafted anywhere, and I never in my life did I think I was going to be a number one pick or first round. I never thought that, but I was told by several that I would probably go in the third or fourth range, or fourth round range, maybe fifth round. And I was like, that's fine. I can handle that because I didn't have a great senior year because I transitioned to center so late.
Right.
Not making excuses, but it's hard when you have to transition.
Well, that's a totally different position too. I mean, you're from the outside moving into the
and you've only got 4 days to practice.
Yeah.
So
wow.
that made it harder.
Yeah.
But in the long run, it did help me But there was one guy, Jim McNally, who was a great offensive line coach, and I believe at the time he was at Cincinnati. When we were up in Indianapolis during the combine, which I completely hated, I thought it was bull.
Yeah.
And a quick side story. They want you to do the Wonderlic test. Well, back then when you did the Wonderlic test, it was about 5 hours.
Wow.
You know, and after about the 40th question, they started repeating the questions, but wording it different. And I'm like, you know what? This is stupid.
I think they do that on purpose to try to wear you down and see mentally where you go. You know,
and I just got up and walked out. I said, I'm not taking. I said, this ain't doing anything. So, was it a good decision? No, but that's just the way I was.
Right.
But so I ended up being drafted. Jerry Glanville for Houston calls me at 12:15 a.m. the next day and says, we're taking you in the 11th round. Are you happy? And I'm like, no, I'm not happy at all. The week before, I did an interview, and they said, what teams do you not want to go to? And at the time, it came down to Houston, and I think Minnesota, and maybe Green Bay.
Right.
And the reason I didn't want to go to Houston is that they had 4 number ones on their offensive line.
Right.
I wasn't going to play. I was, I was going to be a backup.
Right.
And so fast forward a few years, I go into Buffalo after I quit playing, and Jim McNally is in there, and he walks up to me in the offices, and he said, "Johnny," said, "You know who I am?" And I know who you are. I said, "You're just one of the bitch that told me I wasn't going to get drafted until the 11th or 12th round, maybe not even get drafted." And he started laughing, and he says, "Well, I was right, wasn't I?" And I said, "Yes, you were." And he said, "But I want to tell you something." He said, "You had a great career."
Yeah.
Because I watched you throughout your career, and you played very well. And you were everything that we thought you were going to be,
right?
But you just weren't going to be one of those high round draft kids.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, I appreciate that. Being honest and everything.
Oh yeah.
You're in a league that people aren't honest,
right?
And lie to you all the time. And for him to say something like that to me meant a whole lot for me. And And again, I never thought that I was going to be a first or second rounder, but I never thought that I was going to be an 11th rounder.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it was the best thing that happened to me.
Yeah.
Because it just fueled me that much more.
Right.
And I just had to get through those 2 years in Houston.
Right.
Because I knew I was leaving, and I didn't know where I was going. But I just had to get through those 2 years in Houston. And that coach at Houston, my offensive line coach at Houston, funny enough, I saw him about 15 years after I retired, or about 10 years after I retired at a golf tournament down in Miami. And he came up to me and apologized. And I said, "Why are you apologizing?" He said, "You should have been our starting center."
Wow.
And he says, "I completely dropped the ball, but you should have been our starting center from day one."
Wow.
And I just said, I I appreciate that, but it doesn't do me any good.
Yeah. A little too little too late there on that one right there.
Exactly.
Oh,
but
man.
it all works out at the end. You know, David, we all talk about it. I've been very blessed. And I do think at the time, being drafted in the 11th round turned out to be a good thing for me.
Right.
Financially, it wasn't, because, people need to understand when you're a first or second rounder, you have a little bit of generational wealth that you can build upon. But when you're an 11th rounder and you get $9,000 to sign, it's hard to build on that. And then your second contract isn't that much better. Not complaining.
Right.
I promise you, I'm not complaining. But those things, you think about those things later in life.
Yeah. Wow. Absolutely. Again, going down memory lane with the refrigerator movie here today. John bringing it in this third segment as well today, taking us down memory lane and giving us, like I said, a unique perspective that only John can bring to the program right here. And we've got him very fortunate to have him as our part of our morning rant as a co-host. Hey, we're going to take our final break. When we come back, we'll dive into some more league news, and we'll end off with some good stuff right here on the morning rant till 11 o'clock this morning. Keep it locked right here on the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia on the SportsPig app and online at sportspigradio.com.
Tired of shouting your business's name into the void and getting nothing but crickets? Your brand deserves more than awkward billboard glances and flyers lining bird cages. Right now, listeners are hearing me ramble on instead of your ad. That's a touchdown for missed opportunities and a fumble for your wallet.
Loose, recovered, Atlanta, game over.
Your ad could be here, making fans laugh, cheer, and most importantly, call you. Go to sportspigradio.com or call 678-454-9552 and get your business off the bench and into the game.
And back here on a Winging It Wednesday with my man John Davis. Dave Garner with you till 11 o'clock here. Got 10 minutes left on the program before Chuck Oliver takes over the airwaves right here on Sports Pig Radio. Again, the Sports Pig, your home for ESPN Radio in North Georgia and also home of the Morning Rant Monday through Friday right here and, of course, online at sportspigradio.com, also on YouTube as well. Check out our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. We are all over the place, and we've had some really good streaming numbers over the last couple of weeks as well. Hey, I did want to give a shout-out to Kennesaw State. John, this will be sweet music to your ears. They upset the number 7 University of Georgia Diamond Dogs yesterday. Kennesaw State baseball beating University of Georgia 10-7. And I think, and I'm looking through here because I saw this kind of come across last night. But yeah, I think it was the largest. I'm trying to find my note. Here we go. Highest ranked win by Kennesaw State in program history. First win over Georgia since 2021, and the first win in Athens since 2017. So congratulations to the Kennesaw State Owls, able to top the Diamond Dogs yesterday over in Athens by a final of 10-7. So again, if you want to pour on, John, you go ahead and pour it on right here, man.
All I can say is go Owls.
I love it. Hey, we were talking earlier in the show in the first segment as we were kind of teasing this show, and I want to make sure we don't have a lot of time left, but I did want to make sure we got into it a little bit. Couple things, obviously one of the things, competition committee. Again, looking at this, there's some different proposed rule changes that are going to, possibly be implemented this year. For example, permitting the kicking team to declare an onside kick at any time during the game and not just in the fourth quarter. Eliminate the kicking team's incentive to intentionally kick the ball out of bounds when kicking off from the 50-yard line. A lot of it is special teams type stuff. One of them is allowing the NFL officiating department to correct clear and obvious misses by on-field officials that impact the game in the event of a work stoppage involving a game and so forth. So again, don't know if you've had a chance to look at any of that, but again, the competition committee is always out there. I really wish they would do. There's just certain things to me that are always a little inconsistent with football, and that goes into the college level, even in the high school level. For example, you touch a ball you're going down on a punt, you're trying to down a ball, you touch it, but then it goes into the end zone. It's a touchback. But if it doesn't go into the end zone, they bring the ball back where it was touched. It's like, well, if it's touched, to me, it should either be down or not. Like the rules are different once you cross the end zone. I always kind of feel like once the ball hits the plane of the goal line, the play should be over. But a lot of times now it's one of those things where you still got to make the catch. You still got to go to the ground. We're still having trouble defining exactly what a catch is. So maybe they'll get some of that stuff worked out. We saw it, and we've seen it in the playoffs this past year or so, defining a catch.
Yeah, I think the one word I would say is consistency.
Yeah.
I think they're watering it down a little bit too much. They need to bring the kickoffs back. They've gotten safety enough to where the concussion protocols and stuff that they can handle. I think the whole kickoff thing's a joke.
Yeah.
And what you're saying about touching the ball, going in the end zone and touchbacks, I just think they're confusing. Are making it more confusing for the fans. And I will say this, as you know, this is a multi-billion dollar business
machine.
So they need to have a referee either back in New York or up in the booth. And because there are some terrible calls that are made that need to be overturned immediately. And listen, I don't care what people say, that changes the betting line. I'm sorry.
There's a lot of money on the line. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, so you have to wonder because, all those players, they're not perfect.
Right.
There's some shady things that are going on.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't agree. I just think that, again, this goes back to Goodell, and I just think that he needs to be a little bit more honest or forthright with, bring football back to the way it was. Now that the money and the booking companies are involved now, got a team in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
You need to have more eyes off the field, because the referees are going to make mistakes.
Right.
But it's their job to go up to the booth and say, okay, son, you made a mistake. We're going to overturn it, and we're all good.
Right, exactly.
And I just don't think that's the way it is.
Right, yeah.
So, and a couple of things I just wanted to talk to you about. I don't mean to cut you off. Talking about the NFL and the free agency and stuff, I went on to NFL.com and kind of looked at all the teams and everything. And it looks like as of now, except for some late moves, all the teams now have pretty much kind of solidified their free agencies, the picks that they brought in. They've shored up either offensive lines like the Buffalo has, or your quarterbacks like Atlanta has, and just kind of make your defense, the DB, stronger. All of them have kind of gotten to the point to where they've kind of met their needs until the draft.
Right.
Now, the draft is completely different, as you know.
Yeah.
This is really where the egos come into play, because you've got an owner, Jerry Jones.
Yep.
You've got a GM, whoever that might be, and then you've got a head coach.
Right.
Bill Parcells said it best a few years ago when he went to New England. If you want me to cook dinner, you got to let me buy the ingredients.
Right.
And you know what?
Yeah.
That's what you got to do. The head coach is the one that's out there with these players every day. Now, the GM has a say in it. The owners need to step back.
Yeah.
Because they're paying these guys good money to make these decisions.
Sure.
If they're wrong, they'll fire them. If they're right, chances are they get a chance to play in the Super Bowl.
Sure.
But Jerry Jones is famous for just meddling when he should.
Oh, yeah. He's in every coach's meeting. I mean, he's in,
everything. And then Ralph Wilson, for the owner for the Bills, when I was playing, he just stepped back and he says, you know what? I've got two great GMs and I've got a great head coach. I trust them. And you saw what happened.
Right.
So I think now, with the draft coming up, you're going to see on TV and the radio and in the paper and stuff, internet, everybody's got their mock drafts. Who's going where? Who's going? Let me tell you something. Probably, I would say, and I might be wrong, but I would say the first 7 to 9 picks are a lock.
Yeah. I would say so. Yeah, I mean, that
happens early.
Right. I was going to say,
you.
Right.
After that, you have nobody
wide open.
predicted.
Oh yeah, it's wide open. Yeah.
And so you can just throw those mock drafts out. I will say this also. I think the draft should be 3 rounds.
Yeah.
And then that way the rest of the players can go, and then you fight for free agency.
Sure.
Still make the money good, but then you fight for free agency.
Right.
Because 7 rounds, I mean, I was 12 rounds. And imagine there used to be 20 rounds back
I know that's so crazy when you think about the structure and how it's changed. Right. Yeah.
And I think they need to tone it down. And then one other thing I was watching, because I am a football guy, and of course, anytime football is on, I watch it. The UFL comes on this weekend.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Friday night, and I did a little research because I wanted to see how many of those players actually made it to the NFL, and there were over 100 plus players who were signed to an NFL contract.
Wow. That's a big percentage. That's a lot. That's a lot of folks.
For 8 teams, that's pretty good.
Right.
40 to 50 players, they said, last year made an NFL roster.
Wow.
So,
that's worth watching. That's what makes it worth watching because of that. Because there's a legitimacy there to that league.
While it might not be NFL level caliber, it is definitely the minor league system of it. It's still good football.
Right.
And I'll give one bit of advice to anybody out there that even bets for UFL. The first 4 games of the season, always bet the under, because it takes about that many games for the offense
to get the offense going. I love it. I love it.
That's my bit of a gambling advice.
There we go, man. I love it. Hey, that's going to wrap things up, man. That's the way to go out right here. Big John Davis, thanks for being with us right here on this Winging It Wednesday edition of the Morning Rant. Good stuff today, partner, man. We appreciate you.
Have a great day.
All right, there we go. Again, the Morning Rant Monday through Friday right here on the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia on the Sports Big app and online at sportsbigradio.com. Thanks for giving us a listen. Check out the video version of this show on YouTube. We archive the episodes on there and also on sportsbigradio.com. Until next time, if you don't know, you better ask somebody. The Morning Rant right here. See ya.